Hi everyone, thanks for joining in for today's session. And today I'll be talking about the new and the modified language features in Java 14 and 15, what they are, why you need them, and how you can use them in your applications. And I'll demonstrate all these features by live coding them, and I'll not be using a lot of static slides. And so thank you, Sovik, for the introduction. I don't think I really need to go through my introduction again. Just a quick detail on what essentially it means to be a developer advocate at JetBrains. That means that I help developers like you become more productive by making the best use of IntelliJ IDEA. I have also written a couple of books on Java certification because I really believe that writing these certifications can take your Java skills to the next level. They bring you the recognition in the industry and a lot of other benefits. So before I dive into the details of what's new in Java 15, let me take a step back and talk a little bit about the Java's release cadence. Java 8, as you know, was released in March 2014. After three and a half years, Java 9 was released in September 2017. And since then, the release cadence for Java changed to 6 months. And now we have a new version of Java every 6 months, which means we have the new version of the latest version is Java 15, released in September this year. And what does that mean for us developer? Is that good? Is that bad? Is it good for the features, for the developers? I believe that it's good both for the developers and the features. As developers, we get to know just quite a handful of features rather than going into browsing through, let's say, hundreds of features which came out with Java 8 or 9. And for the features also, it's good because they get the spotlight they deserve. Because if you talk about, let's say, Java 9, the module system was the big bang feature which got all the spotlight, and smaller important features like compact strings, they really didn't get to the developers because I assume a lot of you would still not know what are compact strings, which came out in Java 9. So instead of Java using 2 bytes to store each character of a string, it now uses just 1 byte because it figured out that most of the values that we store at string can be stored using Latin characters and using just 1 byte. So just to keep this interesting, engaging, just to make sure that you don't fall asleep, if you could type in the chat window the latest Java version you have used. And we would come back and talk about the answers to these questions at the end of the session. So let me get started with Java 15. First things first, how to find out what's new in a particular Java version. My go-to resources are the OpenJDK page from Oracle. The link is here and you can access this link to find out all the features, all the JEPs, which is the Java enhancement proposals that go into a language. And I'm not going to go through these features now. You can, of course, click all these links here to find out more details. And just in case if you're thinking there are no API changes, so this is my second go-to resource. You can view this link to find out the difference between Java 14 and Java 15, the difference between the API. So let's, if I maximize this window here, you can actually see the changes, additions, and removals. And you can go to any package and find out how a class or the methods or even the documentation, they have changed. Let's say I go to records. Where is my favorite record? Okay, so let's go to string probably, and you can see the changes here and the modifications and deletions here. So let me go back to my presentation. Yes. So the language features which are in as additions or modifications in Java 15 are these. And before I go in details for the features, you would see that whenever someone talks about the new language features now, they talk about whether the language feature is a preview language feature, whether it's in the second preview, and things like that. So let me talk a little bit about that, and then I'll go and live code all these features. So what is a preview language feature? It is not an incomplete feature or something which is half-baked. A preview language feature is a complete language feature which has been implemented to the best it can be. The only difference between a preview language feature now, as we see and hear about them, and what used to happen earlier is because of the change in the release cadence. Earlier, Oracle had around 3.5 years to test out a new language feature, but now since the release cadence has changed, a new feature comes, is added to the language in 6 months, and that doesn't give Oracle or the developers a lot of time to test out the features. And unlike an API, which can be deprecated at some future time, the language features, once they go into the language, you cannot do anything about them. If you don't like them, if they don't work as expected, then you do. The language features would interact with all the existing language features, and then you'll have to live with it. So Brian Gates heads Project Amber at Oracle, which talks about adding new language features to Java or modifying the existing ones. And he is actively encouraging developers and looking for feedback on the language features which are introduced as language features. Sorry, the preview language features. So this is one of the old tweets, but still relevant now. And I asked Brian, so when are we supposed to submit the feedback? And is there a last stage to do that? So he said there is no hard deadline, but the train is rolling. And Oracle has been listening to the feedback from the developers because switch expressions was introduced as a preview language feature in Java 12. And it included a keyword break to return a value from its switch branches, which was later changed to yield, YIELD, because a lot of developers complained that it is kind of interfering with the break statements, how they were used to using them earlier. So Oracle is listening to the feedback from developers. So if you have any feedback on any of the preview features that you see in a language version, please make sure that you do submit your feedback. So now let me go to the first language feature in Java 15, which is the sealed classes and interfaces. So let me hop on to my IDE. So I am using 2020.3 EAP. So the stable version for IntelliJ IDEA, the latest stable version is 2020.2. And all the features that I would demonstrate today, they are available in both the community and the ultimate version of IntelliJ IDEA. So you can download it and try it out. But of course, if you want to try out Java 15 features, they would be available in 2020.2 and not the previous versions because, yes, that's when Java 15 was available. Great. So let me start with the sealed classes and interface. So what is it and why you need it? The syntax of sealed classes and interfaces allow you to limit the classes or the interfaces that can extend your classes or interfaces. So that's the syntax part. But why would you want to do so? So let me talk about a quick example. Let's say you go back home and you have two kids. And so the question is, what do you do when the older kid comes to you and talks about something? So of course you have some answers. The second question, what do you do when the younger kids comes to you? Okay, again, you know how to probably answer the questions. The third question, what if another kid comes to you and then you say, excuse me, but I don't have more than two kids. And the other person who's asking the question say, no, just assume what happens if this happens. And you are, I don't know how to react to that situation. So this is what has been happening when we don't have a mechanism to, let's say, secure the hierarchies that we have in Java. I just simply could not say that, okay, this is my class and these are the exact subclasses I want from this class. And because this mechanism was not in place, I used to kind of have code which I had to deal with. So let me, instead of talking a lot, let me show that to you. So as I said, this is a preview language feature. So let me go to this class planter. So I have this class, uh, simple class, and of course I don't have any implementation details because I wanted to get the purpose of this feature through. So this is a class which is extended by three other classes: herb, shrub, and climber, and another class, cucumber, which extends class climber. Now let me go to another class and see how you might use these classes. Let me go back. Yes. So what happens? So let's go back to the example which when I was talking about that you go back home and you have a question like what happens if your older kids come or your younger kids come. So this is kind of what we are trying to do with this method. I'm saying that the method parameter that you're passing to this method is of type plant. So what do you do if the plant is of type of cucumber? Of course, you say you harvest cucumber. So that's another method which we really don't need to know the implementation details, which is down here. Uh, then you say if the plant is an instant of climber, so this is what you do. You sow the climber. If it's a herb, you go and sell the herb. If it's a shrub, you prune the shrub. Now, this is the problem code. What happens if the instance is not of any of the types that you mentioned above? You know, as a programmer, as a developer, that there are only these cases of class plant or hierarchies which can come to you. But still, there is no provision. There has been no provision in the language until now, which could help you kind of mandate it using the language. Of course, as developers, we know we can find a lot of ways to get around it, but still, I'm talking about the provision in the language. Now, what I could do is I could, and this is really the problem area. So if you go back to the example of kids, so that could be a bigger problem. Of course, you could have simple problems like, let's say you go out eating and you order food, and the person who's serving the food, he says, okay, if I serve you rice, how would you eat it? You say, with a spoon or my hands. Okay, if I serve you noodles, how would you eat it? Okay, with a fork. If I serve you XYZ, how would you eat it? He said, excuse me, how do I know that? So those are a lot of another example of how the seed classes and interfaces can help your business domain to define code and take decisions based on what you are expecting in terms of the type of data that is passed to it. So let me go back and where is my class? Why does it always has to kind of move here and there? Okay, so now I can define this class plant as a sealed class by using the reserved word sealed. And when I say this class is a sealed, I would have to define what other classes or can implement, can extend it, because it's a class. I'm not talking about the interface. So I would say permits, and I say herb, and I say shrub, and I say climber, right? Right. Now, this is not all. When I define plant as a sealed class, I define what it permits, what other classes it permits that can extend it. Now, I also have to define what happens to the class that extends it, whether it is again a sealed class, a non-sealed class, or a final class. So let me make herb final, and let's say what I can do with the other class. Let's make it non-sealed, and let's make this one sealed. And what am I doing with the another subclass, which is a sealed class, I would have to again start with a pattern. So if this is a sealed class, it would have to define who are the subclasses that it permits. So let me say I want to make it cucumber. And again, it would have to say, okay, so this is how I would be able to define a sealed class and determine which other classes can extend it. The classes could be either final, they could be non-sealed, or they could be sealed. And just in case if you're wondering, what happens because when I say that this class is a non-sealed class, I'm again opening my hierarchy, and another class, let's say rose, could extend class shrub without it being defined in the hierarchy. Now I don't, I could say class rose, and it extends shrub. And now I don't really need that to be defined here. So there are reasons for it, because when I say a part of the hierarchy is non-sealed, then I'm trusting the programmer who's doing that. I'm trusting the developer who's doing that. But I could still talk about the base class as sealed class. So I'm giving the developer freedom to move out a little bit and define other classes, which I do not need to include in the hierarchy explicitly. But of course, so it gives the developer freedom, and still in a limited way. So that's what we are doing with the sealed classes and how I could use that. And so this is how I would like to use. So let me go to this method and let me expand this method. So this is control. Okay. And yes, I missed stating that earlier. I would be using a lot of shortcuts while I am coding in IntelliJ IDEA, and you can use the view these shortcuts at the bottom of my screen. Let me show that to you again. So you can see a rectangle that comes on the bottom of my screen, and you would use view the shortcuts that I would be using during my presentation. This is as the result of a plugin which I'm using, which is Presentation Assistant. And you can download this Presentation Assistant plugin from the marketplace. Apart from helping you with the presentation, I think it's a great way if you are pair programming, and if your partner wants to know what shortcut you're using, and then you can just tell him to shut up and view the screen. That's my favorite part. Right. So this is how you would be able to use the seal types in future when you would. So moving forward, seal types would be working closely with the pattern matching that we already have seen with switch expressions, which was introduced in Java 12. Switch expressions became a standard language feature in Java 14. And if time permits, I would quickly show you a demo of switch state expression as well. So this is how you might be able to use the sealed types in one of the future versions. So you can't do it right now. The code will not compile. And great. So this is, so I just talked about why we need the sealed classes, how to use it, and and one other quick detail. So until now, how did we kind of limit our classes to being extended by other class? Let's go to one extreme. If I define my class as a final class, then no other class can extend it. Yes, that's obvious. But I can define my class package private, and then I could limit the accessibility and the extensibility of the class to the same package. Now, and if I make it public, of course, then all the other classes can access it or extend it. So this is kind of making it a more declarative way, the way you have. I love SQL statements for the simplicity that they have. select ABC from table and join this with the other table. I don't care what you do behind the scenes. So that's exactly what we're doing with the sealed classes and interfaces. We are defining it declaratively that this is my class and these are the other classes that can extend it. Now you go and work around your business logic. Right, and I already talked about the pattern matching, right? So this, I just talked about the sealed classes, and you can also have sealed interfaces in the same way. So here I have a sealed interface move, which permits the two other interfaces to extend it. The non-sealed interface, which extends move, sealed interface, and of course, I could also have a class which implements this sealed interface, because an interface can define which other interface can extend it, or a class that could implement it.